Welcome to the Nerdstalgic podcast with your host, the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm.
Howdy folks, and welcome back to another exciting, fun and Christmassy filled episode of the Nerdstalgic podcast. I'm your host Luke, as per usual. Hope you're all well, again, as per usual. Before we get into today's topic, again, I got to do a bit of the nerdy, boring business, but business is good, and business is only going to last for another 3 weeks, and then at the end of December, this business will no longer be business, and it will just be me talking to you without any promotion. So best to jump on it as soon as possible. World of Books, thank you for sponsoring this episode and sponsoring the show. Within doing so, they've given me a promo code which is 10% off on any and all purchase on their store. Just use the promo code nerdy10 at checkout to get yourself 10% off. They do primarily pre-owned things like pre-owned books, pre-owned movies, video games, LPs, vinyls, that sort of thing, singles, whatever sort of takes your fancy. They save books and save all those sort of things from landfills, charity shops, and anybody's homes who wish to donate. And they sell pretty good, and free delivery in the UK. So if you use my code NERDY10, that's NERDY or higher case 10, at checkout, you save yourself 10% off any and all orders. So if anything, cost of living crisis, jump on it, I say. But also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Nerdstalgic_pod to be up to date with all the things I post and talk about. And also don't forget, if you're listening on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to the channel at the Nerdstalgic podcast. Don't forget to like and share and all that jazz, because the more you interact with me on YouTube, the more people see it, and then the more followers, subscribers I get, and then it's just great. But yeah, so that's all the business side out of it. Today there won't be no story time, mainly because I don't have a lot to say in terms of story-wise, which I know is a shocker because usually I do. I always have a story to tell about something, but I don't have much of a story to tell with this movie, because today, if you've seen at the top of this episode, the banner, of course I'm talking right now. See, I'm crazy. I'm in one of those really happy, weird moods, so I do apologize. I never edit any of this stuff out, unless it's really, really bad and I swear in the first 30 seconds or really crucially mess up. I tend to keep all this in because it makes it all natural and real and organic, to be honest. This is me just talking to you as if a friend was talking to you. Most people edit all this stuff out, but I like to kind of keep it sort of organic. So as I was saying, today episode I'm going to be talking about the Chronicles of Narnia, the Prince Caspian movie, which I think is like 2008, the Disney movie that came out. I love this movie. I really, really do. I'm really, really excited. I've currently got a cup of half a cup of hot chocolate because I drank most of it while I was while I was on my way up the stairs. But I've got half a cup of hot chocolate, which is probably mild to cold chocolate now. I've also got a candle on, which is, if I can look closely, it's Vermont white spruce. It smells really, really nice, to be honest. It's very piney. It's very nice. I'm in my room today. I'm not downstairs by the Christmas tree, mainly because family's downstairs. And I didn't want to record in front of family because it's embarrassing as it is, recording on my own, knowing that I'm in my room talking to myself, technically. So being downstairs and trying to do it and keep a straight face and keep my composure is just not possible. But as you can tell, I'm in a very happy mood today. I'm going to talk about one of my favourite movies. If you follow me on Twitter, you probably saw that I posted on the Wednesday night as I was finishing off watching this film, that basically Disney was onto something with these movies. That Prince Caspian, if I remember correctly, I think I'm paraphrasing, but I think if I remember correctly, what I said was, I'm not saying that Prince Caspian is better than Lion, Witch and the Wardrobe, but it's quite dark, it's quite emotional, it hits in the right places, it gets you right in the feels, and it makes me cry. And this movie does make me cry, for many reasons, and we'll get on to them. But Disney was really onto something with these films. It's a shame they didn't keep on with them, or um, do, do more, or even try the hand at doing the magician's nephew or something like that. They got all the way up to the third book, the Dawn Trader, and then they just stopped. Again, I don't know if that movie didn't is underperformed or didn't do very well, or they didn't want to carry on. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, they were definitely onto something here, and I hope that one of the things I've done so far this holiday season is convince you guys, you folks, to really give this series a go. If it means watching the movies for the first time or reading the books, I really hope that I've managed to inspire you folks to just want to give them a go, because they are generally really, really good stories. Especially, the movies are pretty good as well, to be honest. No matter how old you are, if you have kids or you don't have kids, they're fantastic Christmas movies. They're fantastic stories in general, so that they're definitely worth it. But as I mentioned, haven't really got much of a story time today, so this is going to be a short introduction, not a very long one. So yeah, get ready, get yourself all nice and cool. Well, actually, then again, Narnia this time of year, for this episode, is quite warm, so no need to wrap up warm this time. We're not going into the frozen 100 years of winter from the White Queen. She's dead, long and gone now. Jadis is gone. Time of the age of the Tamarins and the age of Caspian, which is quite a lot warmer, a lot more summery. So what I say is put a nice, yeah, for if you're a lady or even a man nowadays, because it's 2022, find yourself a nice summery dress, or find yourself some nice trousers and a nice sort of shirt, low cut, maybe very like flannelly sort of shirt, because you don't want to keep too hot. And get yourself some hot chocolate, because no matter what the weather is, hot chocolate's always nice. And join me as we go into the wardrobe, back into Narnia. Right, so welcome back to Narnia. We are talking about Prince Caspian. As you can tell, I'm really, really excited for this one. I really enjoyed my time going back to watching this movie. I haven't seen Prince Caspian for a very, very long time. It's not one that's on TV a lot. During Christmas time, it's always Chronicles of Narnia and The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, which is, again, is understandable. It's set during Christmas. Santa turns up in it. It's wintry. It's very sort of Aslan and Narnia and all that sort of that time in Narnia, that time in the history of Narnia, is very Christmassy and very wintry. So it's a perfect sort of Christmas movie in on itself. Prince Caspian, again, you don't really see it much on TV. So it's been a long time since I've saw it. I actually own it on DVD. I own a special edition of it, not Blu-ray, but it comes with like a bonus disc and all that. I used to collect the special editions. I've got all the Pirates of the Caribbean special editions, mainly because I just love that series. And the first three movies are my favorite, and I just want to see how they were made and behind the scenes. I'm that dork. I'm that nerd who watches the behind the scenes extras. I'm the guy that they put them on the disc for. You know what I mean? I'm that psycho weird guy. But I enjoy that kind of stuff. One of the things that I found while I was watching this movie, though, which made me laugh, and it kind of stumped me. And again, if you follow me on Twitter, you would have saw that I posted it, that I was finding it hard to write notes for this, because whenever I review a game or a book or a film or TV show, I always write down notes as I'm going along, just so I know what points to talk about, what points I liked, what points I didn't, things like that, as you would normally in any sort of review. The issue being with this film was the fact of, well, it's two issues actually. The first issue is I was actually enjoying myself that much with this movie that I forgot to write most things down. Right, so there's that one. Me just enjoying it so much and being so enraptured in the story, and haven't seen it in so long, and just smiling from ear to ear, that I didn't actually write many things. And secondly, it again, this is not a crux, and this is not a bad thing about the movie. It's just the fact of, again, this is my opinion, and other people might disagree, but this movie is so encapturing and so good that there's not really much more to say than other just watch it. It was a very odd experience, because if anybody's, this is like my 51st episode. I've done in total Well, this is my 51st episode of the main quest, but in total I think I've done like 66, 67 episodes overall, right? So you folks know that if you've been listening for a long time, know that I can talk for England about practically anything, right? Um, and even with something that I struggle with, I still find stuff to talk about. But with this movie, it was very much the fact of I don't know what to put down in notes. So what I ended up doing, instead of things that I didn't like, or things that what I usually do, I just put certain scenes down from the movie that I really really liked, and I was just going to talk about said scenes because I feel like that would be just easier for myself and for you guys hearing. Apart from me going, "Oh, that was good, that was good, that was good." Oh God, it's only been 5 minutes. Well, that's the episode. You know what I mean? So this is how I'm going to structure. This is how I'm going to work it. So um, in front of me, I have my notebook, which as you can hear it, my little wobbly notebook. I've filled in 3 pages worth of notes of just scenes and bits that I liked, because this movie is almost like a 3 hour long film. It's a very very long film, but again I love it. So I've managed to fill it with as much notes and of scenes that I quite liked, and we're just going to go scene by scene. Again, they won't always be in order. Some of them would jump far ahead, um, but I'll try to keep it a bit as cohesive as I can. Um, as for the story, though, of Prince Caspian, again, if you've read the books, it follows very much on from the books. If you listen to my book review of the whole Narnia series, when I talked about the Prince Caspian, which is actually in part 2, so only uh, one episode back, I talked about this book quite a bit and how I quite enjoyed it, how I enjoyed Caspian's character very much so. But if I remember correctly, I think I did say that I preferred Prince Caspian in the films to the Prince Caspian in the books. I think I said that, or it might have been the way around. I can't remember. There's a lot going on, and I'm really busy, so trying to keep up with all the things that I say. I do apologize, and I'm sure somebody will fact check me and say, "Oh, actually, Luke, you said this," and I'm like, "Oh, sorry, I did." So if anybody actually wants to do that, that would actually help out greatly. That'd be great feedback. But don't worry, if it doesn't bother you, doesn't phase you, that's completely fine. But the reason I bring that one up is mainly because the story here and the story that's in the books are very much the same. Again, it's the same sort of template they had with Lion Witch of the Wardrobe. They took what was there and they just made the film, made the story into a movie. Like, as you can tell, it's almost a 3 hour long film. It's like 2 hours and 30 minutes or thereabouts for both of the films. They, but again, it's like watching Lord of the Rings. Because you're so enthralled and so because you're enraptured in what's going on, because it's such high fantasy, and you're taken to such amazing vistas and places, and it's just eye candy. It's literal visual porn, right? That you can't take your eyes off the screen. So because you're enjoying yourself, again, you can't really the passage of time no longer sort of abides by you. You know what I mean? You're watching the movie, next thing you know, 2.5 hours have gone by and you don't know what's happened, but the movie's ended. You know what I mean? So it's very much of book and movie very much follow the same sort of path. High fantasy, high action. If anything, I would say this movie gets a lot more emotional. Many times there's more action scenes, there's more epic battles. There are many moments in this where generally, like I said in the introduction, that got me upset. When I first watched it, I remember I cried when I first watched this movie at a few moments, and even now I was tearing up, close to tearing up anyway, at a few scenes, because it was just so powerful, and because I care about this world and because I care about these characters so much, that I couldn't help not feel part of the battle. Or like I mentioned it in my Chronicles of Narnia, Lion Witch and the Wardrobe episode. Um, or even when I spoke about the actual book series in general, because I'm so committed to it, and because I have such a heartfelt connection to this world, that whenever Peter shouts for Aslan or for Narnia, I get a shiver down my spine, and I wish I had a sword on me so I could raise it up to the TV screen and jump into the TV and follow King Peter, the High King Peter, into battle with Aslan against the White Witch, against the Tamarins. You know what I mean? Again, I know it sounds silly, but it's just that sort of connection I have. And again, it's the same with Lord of the Rings when Aragorn says for Frodo, I'm there with Pippin and Merry running in straight away ahead of all the other soldiers right next to him, going to go take on the orcs. You know what I mean? I'm there as well. That's how invested I am. That I'm ready to lay down my life for Frodo, lay down my life for Aslan. You know what I mean? For Peter. Um, so that's the connection I have with this movie, and that's what I love about going back and reading the books and then um, watching the movies. Is just see how close they get and how faithful they are. They don't change things. They don't add in things. They might add in a small thing here or there, but it's not overly dramatic. Like, it's not like watching The Hobbit and be like, hold on a second, that elf character, she wasn't in it, that romance wasn't in it. You know what I mean? Like, there's none of extra scenes just to prolong the movie. If anything, if they had them in, it's to strengthen certain scenes or to strengthen certain moments, or just for cinema's sake. But it's done in such a way that you either don't notice or you don't care because you're enjoying yourself. So I like to see that the story follows it quite faithfully. For me, that is crucial, especially when it's something that I feel very passionately about. That they follow the source material to the T. To me, that's incredibly important. As for my notes, so this movie starts with the assassination attempt of Prince Caspian. As I mentioned in my notes, it really sets the tone and skits a lot of the boring Caspian's childhood and him idolizing the kings and the queens. One thing that you get in the books, the way the books begin, is that you get Prince Caspian's sort of growth. You get Prince Caspian just talking to his father a bit, and then his father being killed. Obviously, in mysterious circumstances. Obviously, we find out later that Miraz killed his father, so that Caspian's father, so that he could sort of take over. But we had a lot of the sort of relationship between young Caspian and the I think the Grand High Vizier, or basically the potions master. Basically, he was Caspian's teacher, and in the books, actually, Caspian's teacher is a Narnian, and that he tells Caspian the stories of the Narnians, because in this world, up until this point, not all the Narnians are considered to be extinct, and that all that's left are the children of Adam and children of Eve, of the Tamerlanes. So all the Narnian creatures are seen as myth and legend. Kind of, we see unicorns and griffins and trolls and stuff like that as all fairy tale in our world. The Narnians are seen like that in Narnia. And Caspian is taught all this stuff by his teacher, and he learns about High King Peter and King Edmund and Queen Susan and Queen Lucy, and basically learns, kind of idolizes them because he wants to be like them one day. But again, they're just stories. They're just myths, legends. Like, by the time Caspian hears about them, they're just a tale. It's not real. It's just something that you tell your kids when they're younger. So it skips over a lot of that stuff in the book, and it just gets into the nitty gritty. Caspian's asleep in his bed. Miraz's wife. I am saying the King Miraz, actually. Let me check my notes. Yeah, Miraz, Miraz. I think that's how you spell it anyway. That's how I spelled it in my notes. But for a long time, Miraz was trying to have an heir, but always failed at having a child. But this one night, his wife catches, well, she's already caught pregnant technically, and she gives birth to a boy. And straight away, once he notices he has a boy, he smiles, turns around, looks to his general, and basically gives him the nod of like, yeah, go cap Caspian. Cap Caspian, that's funny. Yeah, basically go cap Caspian, take him out, don't make it look obvious. At the same time, obviously the teacher finds out about this, realizes Caspian's in danger, goes in to wake him up, gets him out of the castle. And this is what I mean, like, it sets the tone of how dark and visceral this movie is, because it's not the fact that they go in and they just try to drag him out and they're going to sort of kill him, like stab him in the heart, and he's awake. No, literally, they think he's asleep in his bed, and kind of like, again, I'm quoting Lord of the Rings again, but when the hobbits are sleeping in Bree, and the ring wraiths come into the rooms, and they just start stabbing at these beds. Basically, no, like literally, there's no sort of warning that they're there. They come in, they sneak in, and they just stab it. And this kind of happens. They're all standing there like in a semicircle horseshoe around Caspian's bed. They all think he's in there, and they just point their bolt action arrows at them, and you just hear shum, 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 and they even reload, right? So it's not even the fact of those bullets. I mean, not bullets. Those arrows, didn't do enough damage. If he was there, would have killed him outright. They reload and they do it again, like the literal overkill. But again, it sets the tone of like Caspian's in danger. Um, Not Merlin. I've been watching Merlin a lot recently. So again, that's on my mind. But forget Merlin for a second. So it sets the sort of tone as well for Narnia. Narnia is not the world that we left originally in Lion, Witch and the Wardrobe. Narnia has changed once again. Time has passed, and now there are new rulers of Narnia. And then slowly, as the story goes on, we learn that the Narnians are believed to be extinct, and that Miraz tries to use he tries to rally his people behind the idea that the Narnians have come back for revenge and have kidnapped Prince Caspian, and that he has to go and save him, when actually in real fact he's just trying to find Caspian so that he can kill him, because he wants his newborn child to be the heir of the throne. Again, it's very sort of tongue in cheek it's like very Game of Thrones, just without sort of the incest and the blood, really. But again, it's a very, very dark setting and very tone for the start of the movie, and it leads to Caspian being chased into the woods, and he has the horn, Susan's horn, because she left it in Narnia before she left, and that Caspian's teacher gives Caspian the horn and says, don't use it until you really, really need it, because once you call it, help will come. So make sure that you're in need of help when you blow it. So as Caspian's running into the forest, he's being chased by Tamarin men. And as he's being attacked, he falls off his horse after he sees a few Narnians, and he blows the horn. And this is what I love. The scene changes then back to modern day, 1940s, World War II London. And you're back to the Preverall children, and it's the idea of they're being called, like it's their call to come back to Narnia. So again, it's a fantastic opening scene to really get you into the story. Then one thing that I love next is that the scene we get next is, now we're in London. Now the kids are all wearing school uniforms, and again, it also sets up the characters and stuff to show that the characters have aged, the characters have changed. Like, it's only been a year or two for them, but Narnia, it's been hundreds of years. So a lot of time has passed, but they're also, since having grown up in Narnia, have become adults and had to come to the real world and back to being kids. They have the mindset and wisdom of adults, but they're in kids' bodies, and they're frustrated that they were once adults, once kings and queens, once powerful, but now they're stuck being children, and they've got to go to school. You know what I mean? They've got to live like everybody else does, or everybody else perceives them as being, which is as children. So you have Susan reading adult sort of women, well, not adult is in very blue sort of things, but I mean, like, sort of women's magazines about fashion, stuff like that, because she wants to be a woman. She wants to grow up. She doesn't want to be the child. She wants to, she's interested in boys, and she just wants to, be a lady again. She wants to be a queen. She wants to you know like, I'm a man, so I can't really speak much of it, but she just wants to be a grown woman, so there's that. But you also have the fact of Lucy then comes out again. Lucy's still quite young. She finds Susan, and she basically tells him, like, you've got to come help quick. Cut to the next scene, and you have Peter, who's got a huge chip on his shoulder, because again, Peter was the Grand High Emperor King. He was the High Ruler of all of Narnia. And he had so much respect and so much power, and now he has to come back to the real world, and he's a kid again. That of any sort of problem, any sort of small little thing will set him off. So the scene is that he's now fighting with like four other lads, mainly because as he was walking to get to train, the one of the guys bumped his shoulder, didn't apologize, just kept walking. And obviously, like I said, he's got a chip on his shoulder. He still again. For him, it's only been a year. Like a year ago, he was a grown ass adult king, ruler, respected, cared for, loved. now he's a kid again, so he's still got the mindset of a king. So if the guy's bumped him and didn't apologize, he's got a huge chip on his shoulder. So he went. He started the fight, and again, it's that showing that he wants to be king. He misses. He wants to, like as I mentioned in the line which the wardrobe, when he was looking over at the soldiers, well, when everybody else was going to war and he couldn't. He wants to be that person again. He's always strived to be the leader. Always strived to be, well, not a king per se, but just somebody who is respected. And then he's lost it. He just again, I see it as he can't handle it. He can't take being in the normal world. He says, I'm a king. And very much many times in this, he says it like, I'm a king, like I should be respected. Like, and they're like, well, Pete, you're not a king anymore. And Edmund jumps in. Edmund tries to help him, because by this stage, that Peter and Edmund are really pretty good close brothers now, and they've got a close bond. I guess being kings will do that to young lads as well. Um, and Edmund always gets in, but like, look, I know you had it, but like, I'm always there for you. And you didn't. Peter's like, you didn't have to, and that's a really really cool scene, and I love it while they're sitting at the waiting for the train to come, and Lucy jumps up saying something's pinched me on the bum, and then Edmund feels it, Peter feels it, and Susan feels it. And for me, that's the kind of sort of Aslan pinching their bum, being like, get up, it's time to start a new adventure. Get off your asses, the next adventure is coming. As Narnia needs you, so they all get up after being pinched on the bum. And then again, you can tell where all the money went. You can tell that Disney owns this property because they really put the money in the CGI, because it still looks good even today, you know. And as the train's moving on, everything disappears, and all the bricks and all the subway disappears, and now they're in a cave and they're on a lovely beach, and then you get to see the ruins of Car Pavel. The four children are back in Narnia. Then we get a scene with we jumping on ahead now. We got a scene with Miraz blames Narnians for Caspian's disappearance, as Miraz fears magic, and Narnians calls Narnian savages, sees them as extinct. Because again, the Tamarins don't belong in Narnia. They weren't originally from Narnia. They were, I think, if I remember correctly, I think they were traders or pirates that happened to get marooned on an island, and they went to a cave to seek shelter. And again, Aslan says himself at the end of the movie, is the fact of there are many ways into Narnia, not all the same, and you can't always enter the same way twice. But sometimes doors open, and he's at their ancestors happened to find one of these doors and find themselves in Narnia, which is where they're from, which is from our world, from our time. And I find that really cool. And again, I always mention it, having to read and this is why it's so important. I feel like people should read the Magician's Nephew, because again, the Wood Between Worlds. Once you know that lore, once you understand how all that works, you notice these sort of things. You know what Aslan's talking about when he says that there are different doors, different dimensions, different sort of openings. Sometimes it's a wardrobe, sometimes it's a cave, sometimes it's a train station. You'd never know how you're going to get into Narnia, but once you're there, you're there. But you can never use the same entrance twice. It's always one and done. It's one adventure, and then the next time will be something completely different, if ever, which I love. Then we move on and we meet Reacher, voiced by Eddie Izzard. I love Reaper Cheap. I love him. He's my little cute squirrel, even though saying that to him. Oh, actually, I think he's a mouse, not a squirrel. Sorry, my little cute mouse. But I would never say that to him, because if I did, he would slit my throat. He'd kill me, because he's not cute. He's courageous. He is charming. He is everything else. Everything else starting with a C. That's to do with courage and nothing. Not cute. He's not. He's kind of. He reminds me of Stitch. He's like, I'm not fluffy. I'm not cute. You know. But he is. I love Reap Cheap, and he's a fantastic character. I love. I just think he's so brave for being a small character. Like he's the first he reminds me of Merry and Pippin. If there's a battle, he's the first one in there. He's the first one to jump into a battle. To take on the army or take on anybody's foes. He's so brave. And it's such a great moment. He's so well voiced by Eddie Izzard. I just love the character in general, but Eddie Izzard really does the character so much justice. I love it so much, so much. Hmm. Yep, the hot chocolate's gone cold. It's now just chocolate in a cup, but it's still nice. Anyway, then we got. Did I put in my notes? This movie is darker than I remember. Yeah, this movie gets really dark. There are many moments in it where this movie gets incredibly dark for what it is. And again, you could say the fact of the kids that grew up to watch Lion Witch in the Wardrobe have now grown up enough to watch to understand the themes that's going on in Prince Caspian. And I mentioned it as well with the Harry Potter, where the kids that grew up with the movies, the first two Harry Potter, by the time they get to the third movie and the fourth movie, where they start getting quite darker, gets to a point now they're mature enough to understand what is going on, or if they grew up with the books, again, by the time they get to the third book and so on, or even the third movie, that they're mature enough to know what's happening. So I feel like that's why it got darker. Not to say that the Caspian book isn't dark anyway, it is a quite dark book, but they just use a very darker tone with it to show that Narnia is different, that these people are bad, and that, the Peveril children are needed if Narnia is going to be saved, because this new threat is just as dangerous as the White Queen, and just as sort of bad for the health of Narnia. So if Narnia is to carry on, these people need to go, really. Um, let me have a Peter, Peter and Caspian have a huge feud. There are many times where they both kind of just like it honestly, it's a dick measuring contest. That's what it is. It's literally two people who think because they're royalty and because, like, you've got Peter, as I mentioned, Peter's got a chip on his shoulder, so he still thinks he's the bee's knees, right? And then you've got Prince Caspian, who doesn't know anything, who just knows the stories of High King Peter and Edmund and Lucy and Susan, and he's still like, I'm a prince, and it's very much the fact of they just want to have it off, that they constantly feuding with each other. And there is a scene later on which I do mention in my notes that I really really love, between these two characters, that just makes me kind of, it shows that scene off so well. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I will mention it now. Is after the scene in a minute I'm going to talk about, where they sort of siege the castle, and you have this moment between, like, Peter's just like, it would have worked if you had just gone to the gate, but you wanted to go seek revenge. It's all your fault they're all dead. And Caspian's like, well, they would have still been alive if we had stayed here, like I said. And it basically goes, yeah, if we had stayed here, right, they would have come and killed us all, and we wouldn't have had the element of surprise. We had the element of surprise, but you're the reason why you didn't, because you cared more about revenge. You had one job, you didn't do it, so it's your fault. And again, it's very much the fact of, Peter goes, you don't belong here, neither does your dad, your uncle, none of you. And it's that very much where, like, Caspian turns around, screams, points his sword at him, he's like, ah! And, like, Peter's like, come on then, I'll have you. And I love it. I love that sort of thing. But again, it is very much a dick measuring contest. It's done in a good way, not a very sort of. It is a very manly sort of thing, but again, it's in good humor. But it makes me laugh. So, well, how many minutes? What am I? I'm on 20. Yeah, I'm on 26 minutes. I'm doing all right. We'll see if we get to 30 minutes around then, and we might do a break part two. Well, not part two. We might do a break. So where am I with my notes? So this is the part where, going back a bit now, this is the part where you have the epic storming of the castle. Like I mentioned, there's a few epic moments in this movie. There's a lot more than Lion Witch in the Wardrobe. They constantly throw them at you in such good timing that you don't get overwhelmed. You have enough to have an epic moment and have it just stay with you, and then have a calm somber moment, and then the next epic moment, so that you've had enough time for your heart rate to go down and enjoy and sort of absorb what you're seeing, and then sort of bring it back up again for the next high octane sort of moment. So you've got the epic storming of the castle. Caspian pulls I called it a Peter Quill. Caspian pulls a Peter Quill and ruins the plan. Basically, again, like I mentioned, Caspian's role was to get in, find his way to the gatehouse, get the gate door open, once the gate door was open, Edmund was going to flash to the Narnian soldiers that were hidden and waiting in the city. They were going to come in, storm the castle, kill the king, take out the army, take the castle, done and done, right? Because if anybody who's a history buff, anybody knows anything about battle strategy or war, if you want to stop an army, you stop the general. It's as simple as that. Any army, if you stop the general, because he is the high, like if you stop the emperor, the leader, the king, the general, whatever, whoever's leading it, as soon as you take them out, everything else falls into disarray, and eventually majority of those people, the loyalists will stay and fight, but majority of people will surrender and go, that's it, hands up, we've lost. Okay, that's just battle strategy 101. So that was the plan. Peter and Susan were going to take out Miraz, and that Caspian was going to deal with the gatehouse, and it was a great idea. You know, it worked so well. They flew in on falcons. Falcons came in, dropped them in. It was really cool. Something out of Mission Impossible. Really, really good. Really stealthy. Really like Splinter Cell sort of stuff. We're talking here, Assassin's Creed style. You know, it was great. And then Caspian pulls a Peter Quill, finds the professor. The professor tells him that Miraz basically killed Caspian's dad. He's like, no, my Gamora. He didn't say that, but you know what I mean. And then instead of going off and actually following the plan, he pulls a Peter Quill, confronts Miraz, wakes him up, like doesn't stab him in the face while he's asleep or slits his throat. He literally comes at it, puts again, this is a pretty cool scene. It's a fantastic scene, but again, story-wise, it's very stupid. But he puts his sword, the tip of the sword, into Miraz's neck, right? And this whole scene, Miraz has got this tip of this sword literally right on his jugular, right? And he's in the bed and he wakes up and he goes, "Oh, finally, you've grown a spine. I wasn't expecting this." Again, great acting from this actor and great acting from all the cast in this scene. But he gets up with the sword in his neck and he's staring him down. I'm like, go on then. Like, if you want, you said you got some backbone. Finally, you got a bit of backbone. You know what I mean? And he's literally he's walking towards Caspian, and you can see in his neck is tensing up. You can see it in his face. You can see he's in pain, but he's not blinking. He's looking at like Caspian in the eyes of like, look, you've got the knife to my throat. If you're gonna be a man, do it. Kill me. You know what I mean? And he's literally walking towards him, and Caspian's walking back slowly. But Miraz is walking so forcefully towards him, you can see the blood trickling down. The tip of the blade of the sword is going deeper and deeper into his throat, and he's just walking. This like I'm trying, like I don't think I can do this scene justice. This is one of them scenes you just gotta see. But he's literally walking. This blade has not left his throat since he was in the bed, and he got up, and this blade's on it, and he's walking towards it. He's like, come on then, do it. And he's looking over to his wife. His wife's got a crossbow pointed at Caspian. Then Peter and Susan walk in, so she's got it pointed both. And Miraz is looking at Caspian, but he's talking to his wife. He's like, you know, do you want him on the throne, or do you want our new child to be the ruler? And in the end, the lady with the crossbow basically ends up, she can't decide. She screams and she realizes that what she really does want, she shoots Caspian in the arm. I think it just grazes him, but that gives Miraz enough time to get away from Caspian, to run away through like a secret passage and basically sound the alarm. And again, he pulls a Peter Quill. Now, you know, the plan's failed, and this is where things start to go wrong. And this is kind of where for me, the emotional side start to hit in, because I'm a big lover of animals. I don't like animal cruelty. I can't stand it at all. Like, I stopped eating fish because I just couldn't stand to see all the cruelty to fish in the ocean and dolphins getting caught in nets and all that jazz. I ain't going to get into it, but I just don't like to see cruelty to animals. And even if it's a fairy tale creature, that like a satyr or like half man half goat or minotaur or something like that, I just can't. Doesn't matter who it is. If it's some sort of animal, I just can't see it being hurt. And this scene gets me because, again, it's the same thing. I'm shouting at Caspian because he's pulled a Peter Quill and he's fucked everything up. And at this point, I feel like Peter, where like they're trying their best to hold off this army, and that they think they've still got a chance to win. Peter's now ran downstairs. He's managed to do Caspian's job, open up the gate, and so the bridge has been lowered, the gate's been open, and that all the army in the Narnian army that's hiding in the town now storms the castle and basically tries to take it over. But Mraz has got the more numbers, he's got the more forces, they're better armored, better prepared. The element surprise is completely gone, and there are many sort of moments in this where like Peter's going to get Mraz, he's going upstairs to get to him. One of the Narnians, half man half goat, tries to jump up and kill a few people and tries to jump up and stab Mraz. As he climbs up, he basically gets shot in the chest with a bolt from a crossbow, and Mraz just walks over to him with this really slimy sort of sleazy sort of smile on his face and just push like I can't he says something to him, and he goes, "This is why you should have said extinct," or something like that, and then pushes him. And Peter sees this, and then Peter looks out and he realizes like this is not this is like generally this is not going right. We have failed. Like these people are going to die. So they do a retreat, and the guards basically manage to take back the gatehouse, and they're closing the gate. So a Minotaur, again, this is what makes me cry, and I know I'm not the only one. The Minotaur runs out, grabs this grabs this gate and holds it up like a champ, like a real champ holds this up. And I'm going to get emotional talking about it now. I can feel myself getting emotional, so I do apologize if I do. But he's holding it up like a champ, and he's half cow, so or half bull even. So he's like, "Oh," I can't do the noise, but he's holding up, and like Peter's like, fall back, fall back. And so there's people falling back, and as they're running away, they're getting shot by crossbow bolts. This Minotaur's holding up as much as he can. He's getting pelted by bolts constantly, one after another, in his chest, in his legs, and you can tell his legs are buckling. And at the last possible moment to get the last few Narnians out, he pushes it up above his head, and then he goes, "Ooh," and then the last bolt goes into his chest, and he just loses it, and this barrier just comes down right on top of him, and he's gone, and it just kills me. Absolutely, the whole scene just kills me. I can feel myself getting quite emotional now, so I do apologize for that. And then the bit that gets me after that is the fact of it's how can I explain it? I feel Peter's pain in this scene. Peter realizes that what's happening. He realizes that they have to fall back. So as he falls back, he's run past this Minotaur, and then as he's run past it, the gates come down, and he stops to see that if everybody's gotten out. Again, as the High King and as the good person that Peter is, he tries to make sure that everybody's gotten out to safety. And then he hears the shouts and screams of all his men shouting, "Help us! Help us! Let us out! Open the gates!" And he turns around, and he sees all those soldiers, all those Narnians are trapped, and they've got soldiers right next to them, and then they've got archers above them, and there's no way to defend themselves. And I was in tears at this point, and I felt Peter's pain. I felt his as as the last Narnian fell, as each one of them that was left behind falls. I felt that pain. He was there crying, and I was there like emotional, because I would have been the same way. I failed. I promised these people that I was going to help them, and I failed them. And there's this really somber sort of moment where like one of the what is it was it called now, half man half horse, I can't remember what they're called now, but one of those sort of looks at Peter, gives him the nod, because he realizes this is his last stand, his fight to the death, and he's going to hold them back as long as possible to allow Peter and all the other soldiers that made it out get out to safety. And he turns around, and all the other Narnians turn around, and they just sort of see their fate head on. They fight to the death, pretty much. And then one of the hard moments is Edmund at this moment is on top of a griffin, smiling, hoping that, for all he knows, the plan's gone to plan, because he believes in Peter, and he believes that they've never failed. Because when you read The Horse and the Boy, you see that they never lost a battle, that they always won, that they never really needed to retreat because they always had a good strategy. They always had the good plans to always win. And it's just it's one of those moments where Edmund comes over the crest of one of the towers, and he looks down, and his smile turns into a frown when he looks down and he sees all the dead Narnians, and then the camera changes to basically be in the perspective as one of the dead Narnians, just looking at Peter flying over. And it's at that point that Edmund fly over, and it's at that moment Edmund realizes that the plan hasn't gone to plan, really, and that they failed. And it's a very sort of somber, very sad moment, and it gets me really emotional, gets me quite sad to see it happen. But at that note, that emotional tone, I'm going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, we can talk about that dick measuring contest I was on about between Peter and Caspian. So, yeah, join me in the wardrobe. Well, not in the wardrobe, please. No, talking about dick measuring concepts and wardrobes, that doesn't work. No. Meet me back in Narnia in a minute. I'm going to quickly save myself because that was just embarrassing. Right, so we're back for part two. I know I mentioned at the end of part one about the dick measuring contest between Prince Caspian and High King Peter. I was actually going to mention that a little bit more, but then I realised that I've already spoken about that enough in part one, so I don't really need to carry on with that one. So instead, I'll move on to Nick a Brick using dark magic to bring back the White Witch and for Caspian. Tilda Swinton as the White Witch is perfect. She's beautiful, she's powerful, she's charming, and she's dangerous. She just has that look to her that you just know that she is. She pulls you in with her beauty. She pulls you in with her eyes and her gaze, but cause they're very powerful, very strong. But you also know the fact that if I do anything, that this woman can destroy my world, can literally destroy me, destroy my world, destroy my soul. She just has that look to her, you know. So again, Tilda Swinton, perfect casting as Jadis as the White Witch. One thing I forgot to mention in Lion Witch in the Wardrobe was just how good of a White Witch she was. But she's here for only for a bit here, and again, it just shows how powerful and good her performance is, because even if she's here for a bit, she's still quite sort of, she still pulls you in. It's still very much the fact of, oh god, yeah, I can, yeah, she is the White Witch, and Caspian's trying to pull away. It's like, no, this is not what I wanted. This is not what I thought it would be. And he tries to pull away. Then he locks eyes with Jadis, and he basically, again, very much in character of who Jadis is. She just had a way with her. She had this way with people that, because she was very very beautiful, that she's had a way to kind of lure people, and she did it with Edmund. She did it with loads of other people, and again, she's done it with Caspian, that she pulls them in. And he gets lost in a trance. So he's about to go sort of give, all she needs is a drop of Adam's blood, which Caspian has because he's a son of Adam, because he's from our world, our dimension, to set her free. Before he gets there, Peter comes in, takes Peter and Edmund and Susan, I think, come in to stop the ritual that's going on. Nickelbrick is killed. The werewolf man is killed. The creepy sort of Tweety bird, if she was on crack all her life, that creature thing is killed. And then Peter pushes Caspian out the way, but as he pushes Caspian out the way, she's like, "Ah, Peter, oh, I've missed you." And like Peter gets stuck in this trance, and I love this bit because it's very much of the fact of Edmund finally gets the revenge that he never got to have in Lion and the Witch and the Wardrobe. That it was Peter that battled her, but it was Aslan that took the final blow and took her out. And I always felt like Edmund should have had some sort of revenge on her, and he does finally. That as Peter is looking at the white, is like entranced by her. Edmund obviously must have sneaks around her off camera, off screen, and then all of a sudden she's like, ah! And you hear the sound of the knife going through the ice, and the ice shatters, and you've just got Edmund there with his pulling the blade out, just going, I know, you had it, you handled it. He just walks off, and again, it's never mentioned again. It's never sort of hinted at or anything like that. But it's very much, in my opinion, in my eyes, it's Edmund's way of getting revenge, getting back at the White Queen for what he did to him, what she did to him, how she used him, and all that jazz. So it works in that way as well. So I quite like that scene. Then we move on to Peter and Miraz fight to the death. This is another one of those epic scenes. This is epic scene 2, where you get Miraz, who is the older, more wise, well, we'll say older, the older sort of veteran sort of soldier, fighter, swordsman. He takes on Peter, who again, he's a younger swordsman, but technically he has the skills of an older person, so he matches the skills of the swordsmanship of Miraz, because he should be technically that he's mentally the same age as him, because he was quite old. Well, not an old man, but he was like, I would say he's in his 40s, with that, whatever Narnian's 40s 50s looks like. It looks good, but like he was in his like 40s, so when he left Narnia, so he's got a grown adult sort of skill set and experience. So they were very much quite matched. But obviously Miraz doesn't know this. He just sees him as the fact of, he's a kid, he's a child, he's a young man. He can't beat me. I've beaten many men, more men than him, and I've beaten men older than him. I can do this. I can take him on. And I love this scene where Edmund basically goes into kind of tells sort of Miraz basically the plan of like, High King Peter basically wishes to fight to the death with you, and whoever wins, if you win, the Narnians will disappear and you never hear from them again. If the Narnians win, if Peter wins, the Tamarins disband everything and they leave, basically. So whoever wins, is whoever leaves. And they all look at him, and he's like, little boy. And he's like, what? No, king. And he's like, excuse me? And he's like, oh, no, well, I'm a king, yes, but my brother Peter, he's the High King. And then you've got my sister and my other sister who are queens. I know it's quite confusing, but yeah, I'm King Peter, but you can just call me. I mean, I'm King Edmund, but you can just, you can call me King if you want. Again, he plays him with him, and Miraz is kind of like, who is this young fucker who's just walked into my camp, talking to me like this? You know what I mean? This little shit. That's how he looks at him. It just makes me laugh. And he basically says like, why would I want to do this? And Edmund's looking at him like, well, it's a potentiality at a truce, or it's a potentiality at peace. Also, are you scared to fight someone who is half your age, who is a younger swordsman? And he basically gets him, and he goes, no, I never said that I refuse. And then Edmund's like, well, okay, fine. We'll see you at this date, this time, and walks off. And I just love that scene. I didn't write it down in my notes because I just love that scene so much. I was really enthralled about it. But yeah, after that, we get Peter and Miraz's fight. It's a very epic sort of fight. In the meantime, you have Susan and Lucy running off into the woods to go find Aslan. As they go, they're getting chased by Miraz's men, other Tamarin soldiers. So Susan stays behind to take them out. She's quickly saved by Caspian. Lucy manages to escape to find Aslan. In the meantime, we cut back to the fight between Peter and Miraz. At this point, Miraz has managed to battle Peter's helmet off his head and basically dislocate Peter's arm, but Peter's still standing, still fighting. Mraz is called sort of they've called it like a truce, called of like 10 minute sort of respite. Um, Mraz is looking at Peter. They're saying, well, what do you think? What does he look like? And they all say he looks young, and they're all laughing. And he goes, yeah, well, I'm I'm still quite skilled as well. Just because he's young and just because he's younger than me and fitter than me doesn't mean I can't take him. But he does look at his general and basically says to him of like, if any seems like any moment that I'm losing, you know what to do. And he basically looks at him and then looks at the crossbow, basically the hint of like, if it looks like I'm losing, take him out. You know what I mean? Um, so the second round goes on. They're fighting, and Peter basically demolishes the floor with Mraz, and Mraz is like, "Go on, finish it. You've won. Completely fair. You're obviously a very capable swordsman. You know what you're doing. Fair's fair." And obviously, once he looks back and he realizes that his men are not going, his general he's not going to do what he's ordered him to do, which is basically, if this moment is to happen, take Peter out, get me out of here, and we'll basically overwhelm them. You know, um, that doesn't happen. So he basically looks at Peter and be like, "Look, I get it. Just do it." And then Peter basically looks at him and goes, "Your life is not mine to take." And then he moves out the way, and Caspian is walking towards Peter. Peter hands him the sword, and it's at this moment you kind of like, Mraz is looking at him. He's like, "Well, you're finally the Tamarin that I always thought you couldn't be, and to prove it, do it." And he rises the sword up, and then he brings it down, but instead of putting it into Mraz's chest, because Peter stabs Mraz basically under the ribs in the stomach. It's I wouldn't say it's a mortal wound. Like, it's a wound that would heal. Like, it's not a killing blow, but it's enough basically to stop you fighting. So to kind of give the killing blow, he gave the opportunity to Caspian, but Caspian basically puts his sword in the ground, looks at him and goes, "I am not like you. I will not be like you." He doesn't. I'm paraphrasing, but basically, he goes, I'm not like you. I'm going to be the leader of a Narnian leader, not the Tamarin leader. I'm not going to do it the Tamarin way, because again, what you have to remember, the Tamarins were originated from pirates, from smugglers. Their whole sort of life is treachery and cheating and stealing and basically fighting your way for the top and fighting dirty. That's what their whole sort of them being really is, just fighting dirty. And Caspian's the first person in his family and in the Tamarin line to break that chain, where he's like, "No, I'm not going to fight dirty. I'm going to be a good man, a good person." You've got to commend him for that. And again, I like, again, this is what I like about the movie version of Caspian, because you get to see these moments. Like, the actor does a pretty good job. I know I make fun of him how his accent changes in the third movie, and trust me, we will get on to that when we. I know I've hyped it up a lot, and trust me, we'll get on to it when we get to the third film. But it just kind of but I do like, this sort of relationship between Yaz with his uncle, where his uncle's all constantly trying to push him. He's trying to kill him, yeah, like he wants him dead, but at the same stage, he's trying to push him to basically be, a proper Tamarin, be a man, really. Um, and Caspian stands up and is like, "No, I'm not going to be the man that you want me to be. I'm going to be the man I want to be, and the man that Narnia deserves, the proper ruler." Um, so he basically lets him he lets him go, and as Mraz is walking away, he basically kind of has a change of heart, realizes that he's lost, and he accepts it, and that Caspian, he owes Caspian his life. And kind of, you can kind of see in him that the whole treachery, kind of the idea of the way he's been, and all the stuff he's done. He's not, well, I wouldn't say looking to change, but like, he's looking to stick to his word of like, "That's it, we're going to leave." Then he looks over to his general, as his general's holding him, and he goes, "I will deal with you after all this." Or basically, here's the reason he has to stick to his word now and leave, because he didn't want to. Um, and his general basically looks at him and goes, "Yes, sir, we will," and then pulls out a Narnian um, arrow, and then basically bl- delivers the fatal shot to Mraz, killing him, leaving the arrow inside of him. and then he basically runs off to his men like, treachery, they cheated, they killed your king, they killed your king. Then they run back, and basically then this again, the next epic moment happens, the big battle, the big final battle, um, where you have Aslan's call starts to wake up the trees. Before we get on to waking up the trees, because I really love that moment, um, we have this huge sort of epic battle where we have, again, kind of like Lion Witch in the Wardrobe, the Griffins come in. This time they're not holding boulders and big rocks anymore. They're holding the dwarven fighters as the dwarves are coming, and on eagle back, and they're just shooting arrows, boom, one after the other, one after the other. But the problem is the Tamarin. It's not like we're fighting the White Witch. The Tamarins again have human technology. They have trebuchets. They have giant mechanical ballistas. You know, they have more advanced weaponry than just a bow and arrow. You know, so they have ways of taking out. So there's falcons. Again, it's very brutal. You know, they don't shy away from they might not show blood, but they're quite brutal in terms of how epic these battles are. That you actually get to see them. You know, the griffins and the dwarfs get hit by giant um, cannonballs, really, and get hit, and they, as they fall to the ground and hit the ground, and literally when they hit the ground, they dig in, and mud comes up, and you can see them as they fall into, and they take out a few tamarins with them. Again, it reminds, I mentioned it in Line Witch Wardrobe. It's very much on the level of the Rings, but because it's Narnia, people don't give it the light of day. But these battles are very sort of epic and grand, and um, the whole point of the battle, the whole point of the one-on-one between Peter and Miraz was to kind of buy time, not just for Lucy to get away and to find Aslan, but also so that they could set things up underground. Because underground, there's underground chambers that again could be used to escape and to set keep people in terms of battle, so that they could hunker down. But they end up using these underground chambers, and they take out the call it, the support struts that are holding up the ceiling. As they take them out, they start to cave in. As the Tamarin soldiers are coming in, they fall into the hole, and then they get swarmed from all sides. Kind of again, very Lord of the Rings. They get swarmed by all sides by Narnians from underground getting them. Narnians coming up from around, followed by Caspian and horseback who come behind them, try to surround them. So they take out the first lot of forces. Then you've got the next few waves. Of the Tamarin soldiers, as well as the trebuchets constantly battering them with cannon fire, as well as they've got the arrows as well. They're trying to fire, and it just feels like the war is lost. And then finally, Lucy, she finds Aslan, and after they have a little chat, Aslan goes, "It's time to wake up your friends," and does his big shout, and the trees join the battle. And it's very much of like I Am Groot sort of moment. They put their roots in the ground, and they rip and tear the trebuchets apart. You know, they grab soldiers from underground, and they pull them underground, and they like put their roots up and throw soldiers about. It's really, really epic. There's even one that's quite sad, really, where one of the trees gets hit by a boulder from one of the trebuchets, and like the camera pans up to the foliage, the leaves in the tree, and there's a big sort of like cry, big face on it, as it goes down, and that just makes that tree feel a lot more sort of alive, more real, because for a few moments there was like a human like sort of face. It just shows the trees are alive. So that that part of the battle is quite epic. Yeah, so Lucy, and then they managed to push the Tamarins back to the lake, where the Tamarins have basically built a bridge across this huge river. And at the end of it, the Tamarins basically stop in amazement, because at the very end of the bridge, you have Aslan, a lion. Again, they don't know who Aslan is. They just see a lion. They just see a huge creature, and then a little girl, Lucy, standing there, basically staring this army down, staring at them like, "Come on then, let's have it. Let's go for it." And then you've got the leader of the Tamarin, the general that killed Miraz, basically laughs and goes, "Come on," shouts to his men, and they go to run across the bridge. And then you get Aslan does his roar. And I think I did a bit of a biblical quote here. I don't know if it's an actual quote, but I did a bit of a biblical sort of quote here that I wrote, which I went, the waters come, like in the story of Moses, to wash away all the sin out of the world, i.e., Aslan, again, you could say this is the Christian roots of the sort of Narnian sort of story, but Aslan washes away the tamarins in a big sort of wave, and it comes in and it eat the big wave that kind of turns into a Poseidon looking sort of guy, comes in, eats and drowns the general, and all the other Tamarin soldiers on the bridge are basically swept away downstream, drowned and killed, I would imagine. And all those soldiers that wasn't in the river at the time, who were on the banks or um, were on the shoreline, they managed to get away in time. They all survived. But again, it's that fact of this is Aslan basically washing away all the sin, all the bad that was the Tamarin soldiers, gets rid of them. Get rid of the sin out of the world, out of Narnia, wash it away. Kind of like in the story of Moses. So I just did a bit of a biblical sort of thing. It just came to me as I was sort of watching the scene. So I thought that'd be an interesting thing to mention. Then, sort of after the fight, we have the moment with Reapcheap, where Reapcheap has sadly been killed. Lucy, being quick as she is, quickly runs over, gives him a bit of her elixir, and saves his life. And then he meets Aslan, which is a very cute, sort of loving sort of scene. And then he quickly realises that his tail's gone, and that he quickly goes, "Oh well, I do apologise, Aslan, for being in such a state, but I also must resign from being one of your knights, one of your soldiers, because a mouse without tail, there's no honour in it." And then this is what I love, where his men, his soldiers, basically say, "Well, if that's the case, sir, we will relieve ourselves of our tails." And all of them basically grab their tails, grab their swords, are ready to chop their swords off, chop their tails off, for their leader, for Reapcheap. And it's just a very lovely and sort of honourable moment of how much he is loved and how much he's respected by his men. And Aslan sees this, and he goes, "For somebody who's noble and as small as you, and has the respect and love of his men, of his countrymen, uh, I will grant you this gift." And that he breathes on him, and he basically gives him back his tail. And then that kind of shows up in the Dawn Trader, where basically Reapcheap goes, "No, no, this is a special tail. This is a tail gift from Aslan. This tail is special." And it's the best tail I've ever had, because he really loves it. He sees it definitely as a gift. Um, then sort of the scene goes on, and then eventually we're back, sort of not in Carpavel. We're back in the Tamarin sort of town, and Peter and Susan are off talking in secret to Aslan, and the remaining Tamarins are given the gift of being sent home. And this is where we find out that Tamarins are actually from our world, and that they were pirates and smugglers, and that they were stranded on an island, and they sort of hunkered down in a cave, and that cave brought them to Narnia, and that's where their ancestors are from. And that that same island that you used to come to, Aslan can send you back to that island, where there's enough food and water where you can live the rest of your days happy and start a new life, if you wish. And the one of the generals of Miraz's sort of army, who he wasn't. I don't think he was overly evil. He was just, he believed so much in in Miraz, that he thought he was, a good ruler. That again, he was just being a soldier, doing as he's told. But as the story goes on, he quickly sort of realizes many moments that he's not the ruler that I thought he was. He's not the person I thought he was, and that pretty much I wish I just prefer Caspian, really. But when given the option to leave, he basically realizes that this place isn't for him, that he doesn't belong in Narnia, and he himself, Narnia, Caspian's aunt, one of the lords, and I'm trying to remember, one of the lords, and obviously Miraz's baby, which is obviously Caspian's nephew. Obviously, they all sort of volunteer. Obviously, the baby has no choice, but they all volunteer to go into the new world. And Aslan says basically for them, for being brave, for taking the first step into the new world. They will, when they reach that world, our world, once they get back there, they will live long and happy and sort of good lives. Really, that their lives will be um, good and that they will be okay. They'll be looked after. And again, this shows the fact of Aslan is all powerful. He's always omnipresent. He's everywhere. There's a different Aslan in every dimension. In Narnia, we call him Aslan. In our world, we there's a potentiality. We call him God. You know what I mean? Again, I'm not going to get into the religious, political side of it, but I just wanted to mention it's the fact of like Aslan is omnipresent. He's always he is the Alpha and Omega. He's always there. You know, no matter what dimensional world you're in, there is a version of Aslan somewhere. Um, so that bit was kind of nice, and then they go for the portal, the tamarins, and then we have the scene where they just disappear, and then all the tamarins are really scared, really worried, being like, well, how do we know he's not leading us to our deaths? Like, we go through that door and we stop existing, or we go through that door and we fall to the deaths, or we die. How do we know it's safe? And then that's when Peter goes, "We'll go," and like Edmund and Susan and Edmund and Lucy kind of look at Susan and Peter, kind of like, "What do you mean? Like, we've been saying for ages, and you guys have been saying for ages that you want to come back to Narnia, that you want to be here. Now we're here, you want to leave." And basically, Peter says like, "Our time is done here," you know. And it kind of reflecting the fact of like Aslan and Susan have had their chat with Aslan. I mean, Peter and Susan have had their chat with Aslan, and Aslan has basically told them like, "Look, your time is up in Narnia." And Lucy goes to Aslan, is like, "Can I come back?" And he goes, "Yeah, there'll still be enough time for you and Edmund, but the time is over for Peter and Susan." And before Peter goes, he hands his sword to Caspian, and Caspian goes, "I will look after it for you for when you come back." And he goes, "I'm not coming back. You know, um, Narnia has a new leader. Narnia has a new king. It's you. You know." And they kind of settle their differences, and I just think that's really, really nice. And obviously, Susan has been flirting with Caspian this whole time, and basically turns back and gives him a big kiss because she realizes that I'm not going to be able to do it again. And then they're back to the real world. And it just, well, yeah, they're back to the real world now. They're back in the train station, back in their school uniform. They get on the train to go to school, and yeah, it finishes. One of the things that I love, though, two things I want to mention before sort of end this review, is I mentioned this. I think I sung a bit of this song um, in my book review, I think it was, and I think this song is really, really, really fitting. It's called "The Calling" um, by a lady's name who I can't pronounce, but if I can find it, I'll put it on Twitter. But it's called "The Calling," and it's a beautiful song because it puts more emphasis on the fact of um, they'll the way its song goes, it started out as a feeling, which then grew into a hope, which then grew into a quiet thought, which then grew into a quiet word. Then that word grew louder and louder till it was a battle cry. They'll come back when they call you. No, you'll come back when they call you. Um, no need to say goodbye. Basically, emphasizing the fact of, again, the start of the movie where they might have left, but they're always around, and that as soon as they need help, as soon as the call is given, which Caspian does, he calls them using the horn, they'll come back. And then the next verse, a bit further on in the song, is now we're back to the beginning. It's just a feeling that no one knows yet. But just because they can't see it too doesn't mean that you have to forget. Um, I'm trying to remember how it goes. Now we're back to the beginning. It's just a feeling that no one knows yet. But just 'cause they can't feel it too doesn't mean that you have to forget. And pick a star on the dark horizon and follow the light. You'll come back when they call you. No need to say go. Like I'm really butchering the song. It's not an easy. There's many songs I can sing, but that's not greatly one of them, sadly. But again, that second verse really sort of emphasizes the fact of, they're back to reality, but there is still a potentiality that they can come back. Them, them being Edmund and Susan, that it's not over for them. That Narnia still awaits them, and Narnia still needs them for at least one more adventure. So the time's not over yet. But yeah, it's the movie ends. But one thing that I love about this film, and this is one of them rare films, and there's not many of them. There's not many of these films out there, um, but this is one of them rare few films that I sit through the credits on because of the music is just so good. Like I'm not one if a movie if I liked a movie or I didn't, it doesn't really matter. Um, Once the film's done, I'm unless it's a Marvel movie because of an end credit scene or something. Um, I'm getting up as soon as the film's ended. I don't sit and read the credits. I don't listen to the music. I get up and I leave. I think I've told this story before that I had a friend in college who would sit and he would watch the end credits mainly because the way he saw it was the fact of a lot of people worked to make this movie. That he would, want to give them a bit of credit and a bit of sort of acknowledgement by watching the credits. I always assumed that the credits were just kind of important for um, when people go to Oscars sort of moments, that they can be like, look, there's my name, or even just the fact of, well, I mean, that Oscars mean premieres, or even the fact of, say, for example, you worked on the visual effects and you go to see it with your children, you can sit there and goes, oh look, head of special effects, and it'd be like Johnny Silverman. You're like, yeah, there I am. Look, there's my name. So um, but my friend used to do it, and obviously I've kind of grown in respect for that. Like I said, I don't watch them usually, but for the rare few movies, if the music is good, I will sit and watch them. This is one of them. That the music is just so beautiful, not just in this movie, but in the Chronicles of Narnia series in general. The music is just so tightly done and so well done. I think it's Hans Zimmer. So, and if I'm right there, then that makes sense because Hans Zimmer is just fantastic. But yeah, the music is just so well that I stayed and I watched it all the way till it ended. Till I was booted back to the main menu. That's how far I went. Um, I would have loved if there was an end credit scene. Like I never knew there was an end credit scene. Like there isn't, but that would have been a cool one. Um, but yeah, that's all. That's all she wrote. That's all I have to say really about the Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian. Um, yeah, so it's time to leave the wardrobe and come back to reality with the end credits or the ending of this episode. So I'm going to get on to it. And here we are, out of the wardrobe and back into reality. Um, I realise this episode is going to be quite of a long one because I just looked at my preview and it's quite long. So I'm going to keep this ending quite short by doing this. Basically, do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know of your thoughts on Twitter at nerdstalgic_pod. Um, if you can also find this podcast on Spotify. You can find it on Anchor, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music Podcasts, Audible, YouTube, wherever you want. Yeah, I'm there. I'm in most places apart from Apple Podcasts. That's a whole different reason why I'm not on there. Mainly because I don't like Apple. But maybe one day, but not for a long while. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, don't forget to give me a star rating between 1 star to 5 star. 5 stars being the best thing you heard in your life, and 1 star is basically Vogons doing poetry. Your ears are bleeding, and please stop now. Whatever you feel like is fair, 1 to 5 stars, it greatly helps because the way Spotify works, the more star ratings you've got and the higher the ratings, the more you're seen. It's kind of like YouTube, the more likes and more comments you get and the more views, the more you be seen and the more subscribers you'll get, and that sort of thing, really. So it will greatly help me immensely. And obviously, if you're listening on YouTube and you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe or like it and share it with your friends, to help me sort of grow there as well. But yeah, so as you can tell, I really enjoyed myself here. Had a few moments of like awkwardness because I do. There has to be in every sort of Nerdstalgic episode that I do because again, I'm a quite weird and awkward sort of person. Um, but I like to have a laugh. I like to have fun, and this was a real fun episode. There was a lot of passion, a lot of love went into this episode. Well, yeah, to be honest, this whole month has been a lot of passion that's gone into it because I really love the Chronicles of Narnia. Anything to do with Narnia, I love. So again, to talk about this franchise, the books and the movies, it's been a real honor. So um, next week we'll be doing the what's it called now? The Dawn Trader, and that will come out before Christmas. And then I take a little bit of a break over the Christmas holiday, and then the week after Christmas Day, because Christmas Day falls on a Sunday this year. The week after Christmas Day, the Boxing Day, and all that, I will see about trying to get the next episode out before New Year's, which will be the the Chronicles of Narnia video game review. So fingers crossed, right? So no promises, but you know there's a lot of in the works, and I'm very busy at the moment. So fingers crossed, I'll get some free time to do that. So I'll let you all know how that goes. But until then, as always, thank you very much for joining me. I've been Luke, your host. I appreciate you and your time. It means a lot to me that you stayed to listen so far to the end. And I'll catch you in the next one. All right then, guys. Bye bye.